It's preparing to live stream, so hopefully we'll be there in a minute or so.
Hold on.
Just bear with me.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Yeah, we've got a message on that on my screen. Is everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well done. Thank you very much, both of you, and evening to Annette, who's just joined us, having not delayed anything at all. Right. So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along to this meeting of the Audit and the Governance Committee on the 21st of December 2020. You all have the agenda in front of you, and I suggest we crack on with the meeting immediately then. So apologies for absence, please, Hannah.
Thank you, Chair. We've had no apologies for absence, and if it's okay, I'll take a quick roll call.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, you know how it goes. So starting with yourself, Councillor Hull.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Present.
Councillor Hanley.
Present.
Councillor Harbron. Like it. Councillor Liss. No. Councillor Mercer.
Present.
Councillor Noland.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Place.
Present.
And finally, Councillor Wheeler.
Present.
We also have the independent
And then our
person.
independent person, Greg Robinson.
Present.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. And that's it,
public-
Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. Public participation, have we had any approaches? No, nothing there. Declarations of interest, members. Anything to declare? And Annette here to help you with any dilemmas. No declarations of interest. Right, thank you very much. Right, so moving on then to agenda item, sorry, to those minutes. Any minutes of the previous, yes, we've done minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody got any comments on those? Can we accept them as a true record?
Sure.
Yes. Yes. No problems with that? Accepted? Yeah. Thank you. Right, so moving on to agenda item 5. Can I welcome from our external auditors, let's find you, Mark, you're here with us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I think Richard is going to introduce the report and then we'll hear from you. Thank you, Mark. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to introduce the item really, and then we've got papers from Mark, the external auditor. Really, the report and the associated papers are just to confirm to the committee the final certification of the accounts that were presented to you in September, and you'll see one of the appendices, Appendix C, confirms that there's been no material change from the position that was reported to you at that point. You can see in Appendix C that we've listed the presentational changes really, or classification changes that have occurred since then. And I'm sure Mark might touch on the sort of national issues that were prevalent when we reported to you in September, and the resolution of those issues. So I think at that point, Chair, I'll hand over to Mark Dalton from Mazars. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chair. To be fair, I wasn't planning to say too much more over and above what Richard has said and what's included within the covering paper. So as Richard says, the various appendices are provided really for your information and also to assure the committee that the audit process in relation to the annual accounts for 2019-20 was completed in line with the revised national timetable and by the 30th of November. Hopefully the papers and the appendices speak for themselves, but just in terms of headlines, there were a few minor amendments which arose in completing the outstanding procedures that we did highlight as being in progress when we reported to the September meeting. But these are, as Richard said, per Appendix C, minor in nature, and they didn't impact on the bottom line. We have reported within Appendix B for your papers there a couple of the national issues that Richard has alluded to, and those are predominantly around valuers disclosing material valuation uncertainty in relation to property valuations. And that impacted not just the council's property, plant and equipment, but also the council's share of the pension funds properties, if you like, and their valuer having had a similar material valuation uncertainty. So we did highlight that when we met back in September, just to, as I say, assure the committee that the process is now complete to our satisfaction. And I'll pause there, happy to take any questions. What I did want to say, and just to reiterate, as we did in September, was really a huge thanks to the finance team for the assistance that they provided to us as an audit team in enabling us to meet that revised national timetable. So I'll stop there, Chair, and happy to take any questions on any aspect of the paper or the appendices. I think you might be on mute, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for those words, Mark. That's really helpful. I think the team have done incredibly well, including your team, obviously, in being able to respond so quickly to the fact we're well ahead of the national deadline, and the work that was done initially really stood your scrutiny. We've got the detail, as you say, in Appendix C. I don't know whether Rob wants to take us through any of that detail, but as you say, it's clear from the bottom line that any amendments were pretty marginal, non-material. Rob, do you want to add anything at all?
Chair, it's Rob's going to be talking about the next item. I wasn't sure if James was going to attend for the accounts, but he's not joined. But I don't think there's anything further to add in terms of the detail of the transactions, Chair. But equally, I'd like to reiterate my thanks, and I've put it in the report as well. You know, we worked well with the audit team this year. There was a lot of accommodation on both sides to make sure that we could get the work done within the deadlines, and grateful for that. So thank you.
Good to hear, isn't it? Anybody, members, any comments? Anybody wishes to make questions that I'd like to ask? Are we all content? Okay. Right, so the recommendation, back through the papers here. So members are recommended to receive the papers enclosed and to note the final certification of the statement of accounts for 2019-2020. Are we all in agreement with that recommendation? Any dissenters to that? Do you want to just show a little show of hands, perhaps? Yeah, I think that's carried. Excellent. Well, thank you for all concerned. That was a really good piece of work at a testing time for everyone. Thank you. Are you staying for the rest of the meeting, Mark? Feel free. Thank you. That's excellent. Right, so moving on then to agenda item 6. We've got some look now at our internal audit, and apologies, we've got Rob with us. Rob, would you like to introduce the agenda item 6?
Thank you, Chair. So this item is a report on the outstanding audit recommendations from the previous financial year. It's a slightly more limited report than we would normally see for this, for a couple of reasons. Partly because the work of the audit team, as I'm sure Alison will describe in the next report, was refocused a little this year due to the prevailing public health conditions more than anything else, and partly because we've had some significant changes in our team that we've been working very hard to address, but didn't quite manage to get put in place in time for this report. But we have reported on all of the audit recommendations that were outstanding from the previous financial year. And there are, at the time that we wrote the report, there were only 9 of those requirements that were still outstanding. I've since had a further update on one of the priority 1 recommendations, and now there are 8. Because the outstanding requirements relating to the removal of personal information from licensing records has been completed. So there is now only 1 priority 1 requirement outstanding. All of the outstanding requirements are listed in the attached appendix. So I'm not going to go through each one in detail, but I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, that's helpful, Rob. Right, members, you've all had a chance to look at the detail there in Rob's appendix with the status of those 24 recommendations. So good progress, some still are at the same status as they were reported at. Should come up first on the thing. Anybody want to highlight anything in particular? I see we have a new category of grey.
We included that purely because there were some that we wouldn't have needed to have followed up on yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We could re-include them in amber if we'd like to. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't.
That's fine. It's intriguing that you've done that. Okay. The only thing I thought was missing really was just a feel for the time in the year. I think we normally see the date of that particular report just to make sure that everything was moving through at a reasonable pace. And presumably we'll pick up the ones that are still outstanding, the 8 now that you've mentioned. Members, anything caught your attention? Yes, Greg, thank you.
Chair, I just think as well as the quarter in which the report was approved, you could also have a target of when it's going to be done, because that would help the committee. So the grey is fine if you're saying grey because they're not yet due, which is absolutely fine, but it's useful to put a target, a column in just with a date of when the work's expected to be completed, because looking at this towards the end of the appendix, there's a lot of elements from the apprentice scheme clearly that so once that's up and running, then that'll take care of all those outstanding items. And I think as well, if this is produced at the next meeting, you can remove the green ones because they're all saying they've been done, which is great, and then the committee can focus on the one what's still outstanding, particularly priority ones that are sort of standing, because really those are the ones that have got the most risk to the council, aren't they? So those are the ones where you need to focus on. But so with that in mind, the note update was a bit of a surprise, but you really need an update, I think, for the priority ones at each meeting. I think that way the committee is showing that it's on top of what hasn't been delivered yet, and then you can talk about the timescales.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Greg. Yes, and possibly maybe it's a bit extravagant to actually include the colours in there, but I have to say, in terms of assimilating the overall impact, the actual colour coding as a colour is quite helpful, isn't it? Along with the dates and how long outstanding, as well as the points Greg's making. Any other comments, members? There, you happy to? So if we go back to the recommendation on that one, then that we are to note the contents of Appendix 1, internal audit recommendations that were outstanding at the start of Q1 2020-2021. Are we all in agreement with that recommendation? Yes. Yeah, everybody nodding. Right, thank you. Thank you, members. Right, so welcome to Alison. There you are. Hi, thank you for joining us this evening. As you could see, we were having a little technical difficulties there. Thank you for submitting your report. I think Richard is going to briefly introduce it, and then we'll come back to the detail, Alison, with yourself. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just the usual update really for members, but taking account of comments from the committee last time, Alison and I have really tried to escalate the completion of this year's plan, you know, having been really fully absorbed with auditing the and the audit work around the business grant compliance for the first part of the year. So I'm sure Alison will take you through, but you know, good to see now that we can start to see progress against the original plan that we agreed for this year. But I'll hand over to Alison. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Alison, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. I'm just going to change screens now, so if you can't, I'm going to ask if you can still hear me in a minute, so please bear with me. Right, can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Yes, lovely, thank you. So as Richard's just announced, this is the regular update of audit work carried out to date. As we did report at the last committee, it has been a little bit different this year because we've had to absorb resources around the business grants, but we have made some progress. The audit plan started on the 1st of October this year. All the audits are started, some are at draft since I actually produced this report. We've still got some outstanding queries on some of them, but I will go through that with members. I don't intend to go through the whole report, but I will go through the summary and the appendix, which is appendix number 1. So the follow-up audit work, we've spent 2 days out of the 5. ICT, we've got 30 days in the plan and we've currently spent 14 of those days. The service area audits, we've got 59.5 days planned for those, and we've spent 7.5 days currently. The business grant post checks, which we've already mentioned, we've spent the full allowance for that, and subsequently there has been additional work that we've managed to squeeze in. Fundamental audits, which are the main financial systems, we're ongoing with, currently spent 1.5 days out of 11. There's an outstanding 1 audit there to complete still to date. Contingency we have used, as I reported at the last audit committee, we used the contingency days focused on the business support grant work because there was a lot more work than we originally anticipated. In addition, there has been 1 business grant investigation that we've singled out above and beyond the ordinary business grant post checks work because it was a single investigation, but that's now complete. So if we go down to appendix 1, we can see a little bit more detail there. The policy management audit from last year has now been issued in draft. In fact, I believe that's now been issued in final. If that's incorrect, Chair, I will come back, but I'm sure that's now been sent out in final, so we should be able to bring that report to the next committee. Car park income, we're due to start that just after Christmas. Payroll, if I can just bring members' attention to this one. We initially had 6 days in the plan for this, but when we started the preparation and planning for this audit, we very quickly realised that the payroll project itself wasn't advanced enough to fully benefit from an audit at this stage. So in discussion, after discussions with Richard and myself, we decided to reallocate those days to the investigation that came up around the same time, and keep 1.5 days, I think it was, that we put towards the section 106 audit that has proved to take a little bit more time than we originally anticipated. So those initial 6 days, we spent 1.5 days on the audit, but we've reallocated the days to other work.
Okay. Alison, can I just query, your comments implied that there was some kind of upgrade going on with payroll or even a new system. Is that the case? Have I misunderstood that?
It's not a new system. Payroll, it's the same system, but it's being led now internally by Craven.
Right.
So they've taken it in-house now. So it's the same system, but it's just the migration of everything.
If I might, Chair, as well.
Yes,
we're and the reason I wanted specifically to look at it, and the reason why we've not spent as much time on it yet, is as well, after migrating the system to local hosting, it's also given us the opportunity to automate a lot more of the processes. So we're trying to reduce the level of manual input and you know, things like posting pay slips to people and this sort of thing. So a number of the processes will change over time. And at the start of the year, we thought at this point we might be further on with those changes than we are. They're still happening, but they're probably too soon to be audited yet. So what we've agreed with the audit team is that we'll give that longer to develop and bed in, and then we'll do more audit work on it sort of post implementation. But what has been done is a review of the changes at a reasonably high level, you know, to make sure that we're not overlooking any sort of significant risks. But it's because we're changing the way that we do some of the transactions that we want the assurance around it. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you. That all sounds very positive. Possibly means you're going to need more days, because certainly, Richard, in the terms of you're able to, you know, improve processes more generally, make sure then that the internal audit, you know, really cover all those additional aspects and things we might expect in the future. So, right, that's very helpful. Anybody else want to query that? That's a particular report or bit of work to be undertaken. Are you comfortable with that, everybody? Yeah. Okay, carry on then, Alison. Thank you.
That's fine, Chair. Thank you. And as Richard said, it is actually positive, because the things that we had allocated for this year, what were to initially just do a health check on the process as it developed, but we've now decided that we will include it as a full audit, which will be an in-depth audit as part of the 21-22 audit plan. So hopefully we can keep you updated.
That was really helpful. Thanks, both.
Thank you. Okay, so business continuity and disaster recovery, we've got 2 days down already for that one. That one's ongoing. The planning's taken place. The initially preparatory meetings have taken place. Post-business support verification we've already touched on. The procurement assurance and contract rules, we've got planning in progress at the moment on that one. Risk management review is yet to start. ICT data security, I believe we've issued the final on that one now, since I actually sent this report in. So again, that will come to the next committee. Climate change still yet to start. Section 106 is ongoing at the moment. Members will have noticed there was a paragraph in the report where we've said there was a slow response on some of the outstanding queries, but I'm pleased to report that as of today, I've had an update from the auditor who is undertaking that audit, and we've received all the information, but pretty much all the information that was outstanding, so that's positive.
Good.
VAT, we're still at planning stage. Follow-up work is ongoing, and that maps to Rob's report previously.
Yeah.
And contingency, we've already mentioned, we've used those days. So we've spent 86 days so far of the plan. The agreed programme for the audit work was brought to the last committee, which was agreed with myself, Richard, and the Chief Executive, and we're still on track to complete the plan. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Can I just jump in with a couple, sorry, while you're all thinking of the questions, team? The contingency there, the 20 days, did that go to the business grants work, or did it go elsewhere?
It did, Chair. It went to the business grant work.
The business grants work. And then on going back up the list a bit, the procurement assurance contract rules. Obviously, we were part and parcel of signing off those new procurement arrangements. Presumably, the audit will be having a look at their implementation. Is that correct?
It will, Chair. That will form the basis of the audit.
Okay, that'd be really helpful. Members then, are there any other points that struck you as Alison went through? First of all, the audits planned, and then obviously the last one. Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the only observation I can make is that you've got roughly, well, slightly more than half the remaining plan to do in a quarter of the year. So it's still a bit unbalanced. I know there's been other pieces of work that has taken priority, but it is a bit unbalanced, and I think the committee will have clocked that. And actually, there's quite a bit of operational audit work to do. So risk management, procurement, and business continuity. There are some links between all those three subject areas, so there's quite a lot of work to do, is my observation. So that needs to be managed with the workload that everybody's got in the council's team. The other points or questions I might have are climate change is an interesting one for audit work to do. So that might be one. I'm not sure what the terms of reference for that would look like, but that would be an interesting one. And then VAT is often quite a technical audit. I know in our organisation, when we do VAT audit, we actually have to employ a specialist from a top accountancy firm to give us the VAT work. So it's just what the scope of that would be as well. So those sort of questions. I think finally a really minor point on paragraph in table in the table it says up to September, and I think that's just a typo. But if this is a report is a public record, it might need to just, this is paragraph 4.4, it says day spent as at 16th of September. I think obviously it doesn't mean that, does it? But I just thought if it's a public record document, you might want to just change that. So those are my comments really, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Alison, do you want to pick up on any of those points particularly, or any of the others?
Yeah, if I can just apologise for the typo. I think I did actually send through a revised copy of the report, so I think it just maybe got missed. In regards to the outstanding audit work that's still to be completed, ordinarily, because Craven Council have a shared audit service with Harrogate Council, the agreement that's in place is ordinarily we don't actually historically start Craven audits until the last 2 quarters anyway. So at this point in time, there is no gaping concerns that the audit plan won't be completed. Everything has been allocated between the 3rd and 4th quarters, and the work has been allocated per auditor. I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm trying to remember all the points you've...
So, Chair, sorry, if I can just add to that as well. Alison and myself met shortly after the last committee, and we did say that because we'll be meeting in January as well, that when we structure next year's plan, we will try to make sure that it isn't so weighted toward the end of the year. So we'll try to distribute the days more evenly throughout the whole year, rather than this kind of what's become traditional, weighting it towards the back 2 quarters. So we will try to make sure the timetable for next year's projects reflects that. Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you. Greg, are you
yeah, so just the point I was asking as well, that's really helpful, by the way, Richard. I think that's the right thing to do. I think it enables departments to support the work better when it's spaced out better. I know that from experience. The other questions I got for Alison were on the climate change and the VAT. So the climate change is just a curious one on the scope of that, and then the VAT is the level to which that's a technical review of VAT or just more of a general review of VAT.
Yeah, if I can respond, Chair, it's just a more technical review, Chair, because we rely on the work that the external auditors carry out for the high level VAT. Obviously, they seek assurance from the work that the internal auditors do, and we will be just looking at the operational process of applying the correct codes, etc. The scope hasn't been released yet, but it will be discussed, obviously, with Richard going forward before commencement of the audit. Climate change is on the plan this year purely because it is a very topical subject at the moment. It is a very new area and it's going to require a lot of research and background, and we hope to work with officers together to get the best out of this audit, because it is a new area and people aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, and if I might just add to those, certainly in terms of that project particularly, given its prominence as a council priority, it's going to be partly to assess where we are with where we thought we'd be and what measures we've got in place to measure ourselves against the various indicators and things that we set. So it is a new one, and the audit scope and objectives will need to be thought through. But it's trying to give some assurance about, we've set a number of policies and council priorities in train, and we want some assurance that we're recording and making the right sort of progress against the things that we've set out to try and do. And just on the VAT side as well, because I think that was one of the things that I wanted to try and include in the plan. We have specialist VAT advisors that we use for some of the more technical elements, but because of the nature of the council in terms of its overall size and the amount of income that we generate through certain types of sales, we are perennially at risk of a breach of one of the particular VAT thresholds that applies to local authorities particularly. And breaching that threshold would incur some financial penalty. So it's something that we always need to keep on our radar, and that would also form part of the audit assessment as well as the tasks that Alison highlighted. So that's the reason it's in the plan, because of that particular risk that we have. Thank you.
It's all very positive. You're comfortable, Greg. Can I just go back to the climate change, and mindful of the presentation all councils had the other evening on sustainability into the future. I was wondering, as Councillor Liss has been able to join us, whether it would be appropriate for Alison to take a wider view on some of that work before she kind of decides what section would be appropriate for her and her team. And Carl, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that at all. Do you want to? Are you muted? Do you want to?
Yeah, sorry about that, Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for late arrival, Chairman. I managed to get here. Yeah, I mean, in terms of climate change, yeah, it's going to be. Hopefully, it's going to be at the top of the agenda of whether it be internal audit, external audit, or financial reports for the future. We've already said that every agenda item now that we have presented to whatever committee it is, that it will have a line on it that mentions climate change, and I think that's a very positive step. People need to be reminded all of the time about what we unanimously, I know I wax on about this, what we unanimously agreed to do at our council meeting only last year. So yeah, I mean, I would hope it's a standard part of future internal. Is this? Can I just ask? I'm awfully sorry. I've just come. I'm presuming we're on the internal audit report, are we?
Yes, we're on agenda item 7.
Yeah, I'm awfully sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, audit services report. Just a sec.
I think.
Yeah, right. I'm there now. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we are making progress. We will continue to make progress, and hopefully the audit will watch us and ensure that we do. I haven't got a lot else to say, Chairman. I'm sorry, you caught me a bit on the hop.
That's right. No, so in other words, as appropriate, Alison, it'd be good for you to at least be aware of these other strands that are going on across the councils when you come to scope these different, more interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think that's the point I was trying to make, Carl. Really.
Yeah, I mean, Chairman, we have got quite a lot of applications in for funding, notably to do work on our own property. So yeah, there's an awful lot of that going on.
The process behind that might be looked at, really. That's excellent. Okay, can I just ask, the grant payments have been such a highlight of the work so far, and I think you did mention there's one case you had to delve into a little more deeply, but on the whole, presumably we haven't found too many problems, difficulties, irregularities in all that work.
No, Chair, that's quite correct. We've been working closely with the business grant support teams We've most recently, I think I mentioned earlier in the report, actually, we had the one single investigation that we've done since I last reported to this committee. We have actually had payment of that grant that was paid incorrectly. That's been returned to the council.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
That's positive news, really good. It was quite a quick turnaround. I think it took us 3 days. And on top of that, since the last time I reported on this, we've actually had a confidential report from NAFN where they've listed a list of known business and personal bank account sort codes, business names, etc., that have been associated with fraudulent applications. We ran a matching exercise against all the grants that were paid out from Craven, and we're pleased to report that there wasn't any that were on that list. So it has been very positive.
I think it's appropriate then. Sorry. Yes, and all credit to the team. I know they worked incredibly hard and turned around a phenomenal number of additional payments in a short term. So
and they're still
all for that.
ongoing.
And still ongoing. Well, yeah, and possibly even getting worse. But yes, we'll putting that to one side for the moment. Right, members. Any other? I mean, this is you know, I think we've flagged the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done. Richard said that hopefully will be slightly different profile next year. Any other concerns, questions that members would like to ask Alison? No? Okay, so if we go to the recommendation then, that we're asked to note the contents of the report and the attached appendix. Everybody comfortable with that? Indicate if not, yes. Excellent. Thank you, members. Right, so a slight change of pace then. Thank you for joining us, Annette, this evening. I think we're now into agenda item 8, the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, year 2000. Over to you, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully the report's self-explanatory. It's the usual report advising the committee of the number of REPA authorisations issued since the last report, which was in June 2019, I think. Members will see at paragraph 3.6 that no covert surveillance has been undertaken or authorised by the council. And just finally, just to draw members' attention to the fact that the report does note that there is an outstanding training requirement, and this will be carried out before the end of the municipal year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions to Annette? Obviously, sure it's good news that you haven't had any investigations. But any comments on this area of work? Right. Well, thank you, Annette. Your recommendation is that members are recommended to note the content of the report. So thank you for that, and let's hope it stays that way. Right. So, members, any other points anybody wishes to make this evening? Thank you to everybody for their work and their presentation of the reports. Record time, I think, tonight, despite the delays. So thank you all, and to Hannah and Vicky for keeping us under control. I don't have the date and time or the date of the next meeting to hand. Hannah, are you able to help us, or Vicky? To be advised, yeah.
22nd of March, it looks like.
That sounds right, yes. Okay, thank you for that. On that basis then, everybody content that we close the meeting? Thank you all for your attendance, and see you in the new year. Okay, good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night.
Night.
Sorry, Wendy, you come.